Welcome to a football show, Thursday night football, Titans Steelers edition here. Of course, on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. Cheers. And the Kingston Group. Do you have a beverage this evening, Zach? Do you have a beverage?
I do not.
No. Okay. All right. Staying sober. That's fine. By the way, Sinkers Beverages, the only place you can get this beautiful bottle of Russell's Reserve. Zach Lyons himself helped pick it out. So go to Sinkers Beverages and get you some of this. Here we go, boys. All right. Kingston Group, buildkg.com. You know the drill. If you missed any of our SEC preview, that's going to be on the previous edition. So check out that video. Check out that podcast. We're going to have time for you guys to discuss what took place tonight. QC Hawk already, who played worse, Titans O-line or D-line? I might have a surprising answer for you, Zach, on that. So do we want to start with Will Levis and begin the entire conversation with Will Levis, or do we want to start with why they lost the game?
Wherever you want to take it.
All right, let's start with the quarterback, because I do think he played a much worse second half than a first half, but I think you got a ball player. I think you got a ball player in the quarterback. The guy just gets it. Watching Kenny Pickett on the other side, the open throws, the open receivers, the arm strength, all this stuff is there for Will Levis. He got hit, eight times tonight? 9 times, I think, on the last drive, if you add that, plus 4 sacks. Tough guy, stood in the pocket. Look, didn't finish drives in the red zone like you suggested they needed to on the preview show. That needs to be – there's a lot of things to work on here. But in game 2 as a rookie –
I don't think at the fault of the quarterback, for what it's worth.
No. We'll get to all the different things. But I think I came away from this – look, there's game 2, totally different situation. You have 2 weeks to prepare for an Atlanta defense at home. You have 2 days to prepare for a Pittsburgh defense on the road. Totally different situation. I thought he acquitted himself very well. We can talk about some of the missed throws in the second half if you want to, but ultimately, for a player in his second game in that situation, I walked away going, I think the Titans got a ball player at quarterback, Zach. I think they do.
I have no complaints. Like I said earlier today, the Titans winning and Will Levis looking good are 2 mutually exclusive things. And the Titans lost today, but Will looks pretty fucking good. And I'm happy. I am annoyed at other things, but as far as what the future outlook of this team looks like, it still looks brighter than it has in the previous, 7 weeks or whatever, 6 weeks, I guess. I'm excited to watch it again. I'm excited to watch what he does against a Tampa Bay team, against Todd Bowles' Tampa Bay defense that has good corners. Can he keep up with a team that has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton, Payne Durham, these guys that are all pros, pretty much on the other side? Can he keep up with them with being down Treylon Burks and not having anybody other than DeAndre Hopkins to really throw the ball? But Kyle Phillips, KP, baby. It was a KP kind of game, and
nice
he
plays.
looked good. They're going to be on the road again next week, but at least they have an extended period of time between now and then to kind of like game plan a little bit better. But I'm all in on this Will Levis experience, and I'm letting myself believe that everything that you see Will Levis kind of like struggle with right now in these last 2 games, which isn't much, is fixable. It's fixable with a better offensive line. It's fixable with better pass catching talent. It's fixable from his endpoint. It's fixable from the offensive coordinator standpoint. Like, it's all fixable. So it's not like watching, I don't know what quarterback is probably best. Maybe Zach Wilson. Like, if Mike White or Zach Wilson have a good game for the New York Jets, you know that that's just a fluke. Now we've seen 2 good games. 1 great game, 1 good game. And I would say today is a good game. I don't really care about the interception at the end. That's a guy trying to make something happen with 11 seconds, right?
Yeah. That's, you got to try to win the game at some point. Like, you got to try to win the game.
Right. So I mean, a great game and a good game. He's in 6 quarters, he passed Malik Willis's career passing yardage. So, like, I'm all in.
To me, and a lot, I'm actually genuinely surprised that, and we're going to get to all of your questions because you guys are pouring in, and I love it. You guys are all here for it, and I'm down. I am shocked at how much hate Tim Kelly is getting. So we'll get to Tim Kelly in just a second.
I guess, did you not watch the game today?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But we're staying with Will Levis for just one more minute, because I think the truth of the matter is a veteran quarterback playing with those offensive linemen in that situation on a short week with those pass rushers on the road, I think a veteran quarterback would struggle to deal with some of the things that Will Levis had to deal with. I do think he could have had 3 interceptions in the second half. There was a lot more than just the one bad throw. There was a bunch of them. The Steelers made good adjustments at halftime, and I'll give them credit. They make millions of dollars, and their coaches have been doing this all season. This is what the Steelers do. They let you into the red zone, and then they shut you down. They don't score any points in the first half, then they get one big play in the second half, and then they win the game somehow. This is what they've done the entire season. So this is what they've done to veteran quarterbacks. This is what they did to Lamar Jackson. So, I'm not all that upset about what Will Levis did or didn't do. There's a lot of other things we can get to here. On the Tim Kelly issue, I am curious, because all you guys crushing Tim Kelly here. I thought
deservedly so.
I thought the drive that they scored the game's only touchdown, brilliant play calling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that Tim Kelly didn't have his moments, but this was by far his worst perplexing, confusing game.
Okay, give me them
here with its.
Let's work through the moments. Let's work through them. Tell me
let's talk about the bad stuff. That's what everybody wants to talk about. Let's talk about what lost the game. What lost the game is his conservatism on several different drives where he decided to run it on third downs. That's what loses you the game. All the other stuff is great, but if you're losing the game when it matters most, then the other stuff doesn't matter. And let me say something. This does not wash away all the good that he has done up until now. But he had a bad game tonight. It was by far the worst game he has had that you can point to him and say, this was Tim Kelly's worst game. This was not because of poor execution. This is because of poor play calling.
Okay, so what I was asking was, give me the specifics, and what you said was conservative. Now, the first time I can think of that is at the end of the first half on 3rd and 10 with 20 seconds to go. I actually have no problem with that whatsoever. The statistical probability of completing 2 passes for touchdown versus taking the 3 points, I don't know how much that changes the outcome of the game. I'm okay with them ending the half.
You give the guy that you give your hot hand the chance.
I get it. I get the argument. I don't think that's the reason they lose the game, though. So now let's go to the other conservative play call, which I'm assuming you're talking about is running the ball on 3rd and 4 with Tajay Spears at the 48-yard line. Now, if the reason they clearly did that, and the reason I'm totally fine with it, is because they were going to go
run. It's not just that. It was run. And then you take a really big deep shot instead of an easy maybe layup in the middle, the big shot to Treylon Burks. This was not a good game. There is no good game from Tim Kelly in the second half. And that's what matters.
I don't think Tim Kelly had many options. That's what I thought.
I think that
I saw Jalen Duncan playing tackle. I saw Andre Dillard playing tackle.
He played 2 snaps, and guess what? Didn't allow sack or pressure. He held up pretty well. They probably should have kept him in. But Will Levis was making plays. That is what you got a quarterback for, right? You don't stifle Patrick Mahomes. You don't stifle Josh Allen. When you are in this kind of game and Will Levis is dealing, and guess what is the weakest part of this Steelers defense is the secondary, you let your quarterback go make plays. He handcuffed himself, and that's what he did. That is his decision.
Okay.
He made the play calls.
First, I think the most difficult snap outside of probably the last drive for Will Levis, where the pressure's on to win the game, right? Outside of that drive, I would argue the most difficult snap of Will Levis's entire 2-game starting career is first down on his 8-yard line with the crowd going crazy inside your own 10 with the game on the line. And what does Tim Kelly do? He calls a brilliant play action, deep smash route to Treylon Burks, and Will Levis makes a perfect throw. Perfect play call, brilliant play call. And got him out of the end zone. Then he picks up another first down with Derrick Henry. Then the drive gets stopped by a couple of plays. And there's a sack, I believe, in there. And then they punt the ball, but they flip the field in a conservative game that's 16-13, where you have a 3-point lead. I thought the play calling was totally fine on that drive. And that was one of the most important drives of the game. I thought
how you win games.
I thought the defensive line gave Kenny Pickett the entire game to throw anything he wanted to anybody he wanted to. And the red zone, if we want to criticize Kelly in the red zone play calling, I'm all good. I'm all good with that.
I'm
Let's do it.
criticizing Tim Kelly the whole second half. It doesn't matter if he's on this 2-yard line of the Steelers 2-yard line or the Titans 2-yard line. That second half is trash. That's a trash second half.
I thought there were a couple of plays that are, again, I'm not going to say Tim Kelly was great because they lost the game, but I think the entire offense, Levis included, handcuffed by the fact that the offensive line had, I mean, look, the offensive line is what it is. I don't know how many times we've gone over this in a year and a half. That they're going to have to use another first-round pick on an offensive lineman. They're going to have to spend in free agency on the offensive line. Like, they have to build around Will Levis. So I get it. I just don't know. I don't have a problem with running the ball with Tajay Spears on 3rd and 4 if you know you're going for it on 4th down. The shot to Burks was because the defense dictated the shot to Burks as the only option they had on that play. If you want to blame that on Kelly, that's fine. Maybe it was a good play on the Steelers defense. Okay. I think the offensive line and the defensive line were the problem because Kenny Pickett.
If you're talking about players, totally agree. I think offensive line, defensive line. I think you could throw in secondary too, but really the defensive line left the secondary out to dry because they couldn't do anything. I totally agree. I think I don't think Tim Kelly is solely to blame, but he is a big part of the reason why they lost that game, because it's not like the offensive line all of a sudden was really great in the first half and then really bad in the second half. In fact, they kind of quit blitzing like in the middle 4 or the middle 8 of the game and all this stuff. Like the Steelers were kind of making it easy for them. It's the same offensive line they had through the whole game. It's shitty through the whole game. So how can you go 153 yards in the first half and then just go, well, now it's, 100 yards because, the garbage time going down. But like for the majority of the game, he was just 5 for 10. Like that's uncalled for. I just think that's ridiculous.
I guess I mean, in my real time reaction to the game, especially the drive that Pittsburgh put together to win it, which was all on the defense for the Titans, because they took the one deep shot to Deontay Johnson and they happened to pick on Trey Avery the one time. Otherwise, I can't believe I'm saying this, Christian Fulton has played probably 3 straight games in a row that are pretty good. I texted you, I was like, is he playing? Like he looked like a pretty decent football player tonight and the other previous 2 games. Molden had a couple of bad penalties. The holding penalty was pretty ticky-tack. Probably could have called that one, probably that's a 50-50 call that could have gone the other way. But I think
that was very ticky-tack.
Yeah, the third and 1 to Warren on the end around, like you just got Jack Gibbons got beat, man. You just got beat. And then on another running play with Warren.
That's an evergreen comment right now. I mean, oh wow. And then Jack Gibbons got beat. Like who could have thought that one?
Three big plays on that drive, which is what the Steelers have done all year. Like the defense, you cannot give even a quarterback. Like to me, one of the positives for the Titans from this game is watching the differences in the 2 quarterbacks. Like you just see the skill and the talent that is on another level with Will Levis than Kenny Pickett. And the flying the football over receivers, wide open this, wide open that, throw it into the ground. Like it's obvious that there have different levels of upside and ceiling and different talent. But Kenny Pickett, for whatever reason, he did it against the Ravens a couple of weeks ago, made the big throw down the field. Jaylen Warren had 2 big plays running the football, and they finished a drive in the end zone, and the Titans didn't. The Titans had the ball 5 times inside the 25-yard line, and you said it today on the show. One of the biggest issue is going to be red zones. They got inside the 25 5 times, and they scored 1 touchdown. That's how you gotta score 6s, not 3s. And if that's Tim Kelly, fine. If that's the offensive line, fine. The Steelers also scored theirs, and that's on the defense.
I'll say this about this defense. I hope that whatever lesson they're trying to teach Tier Tart, whether that's like family over money or, you got to make sure that you lock the door before you leave the facility, put your weights up. I don't know what lesson they're trying to teach Tart, but if I have to see fucking Kyle Petco out there on 1st and 2nd down for extended periods of times any further, I may just like drive wherever they are at and just throw Kyle Petco's suitcase somewhere in the ocean or whatever. Because, like, why is he out there and not Tier Tart? Unless there's an injury, Tier Tart should be out there. Fuck your lessons. Fuck your moral lessons that you're trying to teach someone or trying to punish someone. Tier Tart should be out there. And it was so obvious. Like, everybody's screaming, well, David Defender in the linebacker in the PFF grades. Well, first off, he's not the best. It's Bobby Wagner. So that my PFF Miami Dolphins fucking lied to everybody and got everybody in a tizzy for no reason. Second off, look at the running lanes that they're generating. Or I guess I don't know if that's what it is, but look at the running lanes that the Miami Dolphins are generating for David Long to walk through. No linebackers getting that right now for the Tennessee Titans. This is fucking embarrassing and ridiculous defense. Kyle Pecco is a waste. That's Mike Herndon's guy. Mike Herndon want him to be on the 53 so fucking bad. And look what that's gotten the Tennessee Titans. Mike Herndon doesn't know anything about run defense. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. He doesn't know shit about run defense. Putting Kyle Pecco out there.
166 yards rushing, 5.5 yards a carry with two different guys. I don't
even know. I mean, I saw Tierra Tart maybe for like 10 plays the whole game, it felt like. But every time that they get a big run, it's Kyle Pecco's fat ass not doing anything. It's ridiculous. And Jack Gibbons, ridiculous. A ridiculous human being to still be playing football, starting football, and that amount of snaps. I don't fault Eric Garror, Trey Avery for anything that they're doing. They are being asked to be something they are not. Like, we have to remember that.
Yep.
Roger McCreary is out. Eric Garror's having to stop in.
Sean Murphy Bunting left early.
Let me say something. I've seen so many tweets saying, like, man, they really miss Kevin Byard. For fucking what? Like, to me, Kevin Byard would not have prevented anything that happened today.
Yeah.
Kevin Byard does not prevent anything that would have happened today, because you know what was the problem? You let fucking Najee Harris go crazy on you, gain chunk yards. Nothing about it. And listen, and people are like, well, you know, Jim Schwartz is gone, and look what the Cleveland defense did. Well, like, yeah, if Myles Garrett was fucking here, that'd be great. But this team right now is not the same team that Jim Schwartz has had the last 2 years. They technically have had better players the last 2 years when the Tennessee Titans were here. This is the problem with going halfway on a glow up and a blow up. And Harold Landry disappeared this game, and he shouldn't have against a rookie right tackle. And then he looked slow trying to go out there in coverage. It's just the Tennessee. The reason I'm so upset and frustrated because this was a winnable game. This was such a winnable game. And the things that we were supposed to rely on heading into this season is what failed the Tennessee Titans. The defense, specifically the run defense, I thought was terrible, and the pass rush was terrible, especially after what we saw against Atlanta. And then this pass blocking offensive line that they built is not a pass blocking offensive line.
It felt like the drive. So they go 14 play. The Pittsburgh Steelers go 14 plays, and they settle for the field goal. Then the Titans come back, and that's when the screen pass to Henry, which again I thought was a pretty good call by Tim Kelly to get the screen pass to Henry right around midfield. Will Levis made a fantastic play on that because he took it right in the face, makes a throw. Henry makes a great play, gets it down into field goal range.
He makes throws that you're
not supposed to.
Mahomes-esque, right?
You're not supposed to. Yeah.
They're not Patrick Mahomes, like he's contorting his body and like making sidearm throws,
right.
But they're throws that no human should be making.
No, his arm is absurd, which is but the very next possession, they get Pittsburgh in a 3-and-out. And this was before they get the ball inside their 10-yard line, right? The Titans do. They get Pittsburgh on, I believe, maybe not a 3-and-out, but like a 4-and-out or something like that, because they actually on 3rd and like 7 or 8, they blitzed. They finally blitzed, and they got Kenny Pickett forced to throw the football quickly and early, and they got to stop, got the punt. And that's when they end up with the ball inside the 10-yard line, and Will Levis makes the brilliant throw. And I think Tim Kelly made a brilliant first down play action call to Treylon Burks, and we can get to Burks in a second. But to me, like, I agree with what you're saying about some of these players. I think Jack Gibbons is in the same group as Garror and Avery. They have been promoted beyond the point of competency. They are not supposed to be playing in those positions. Sean Murphy Bunting was out for most of the game after getting hurt early in the game. That would have been the guy who was covering Deontay Johnson on that deep shot down the field. Like, there's a lot of other pieces on the defense, but the fact that Kenny Pickett, a mediocre offense with a mediocre quarterback and a mediocre offensive line, it could just stand there all day. Like, that's the issue to me. Like, that was the thing that I think Will Levis made some mistakes. I think he locked on predetermined way too much with DeAndre Hopkins in the second half. but those are nitpicky things on a rookie quarterback playing against a great defense. The context around the two sides of the game are like, you have an elite defensive line and you got just stonewalled the entire game. You have a rookie quarterback and a terrible offensive line, and you gave yourself a chance to win. Like, to me, it's almost all on the defense. That's how I see it. And I understand the complaints about play calling. That's okay. But, like, to me, the defense, like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you should not be like forcing that group to go out there and get stops every time. But this is not one of the better offenses in the NFL we're talking about with the Steelers here. Like, this is Kenny Pickett. I just, the amount of times he would just throw a football over a guy's head, I'm just like, oh my God, like, this guy's not very good.
If you would have swapped the quarterbacks and the Steelers would have won by like 35 points. Like, if you would have put Will Levis with the Steelers and
probably.
the defense played exactly the same, if the defense played exactly the same for the Tennessee Titans against Will Levis as they did Kenny Pickett, he would have torched him. Would have torched him. 262 yards versus 160 is ridiculous. And it's just like, again, the wins and losses don't matter. And yeah, I don't like watching football where I know that one team is clearly better than the other. It doesn't matter if I root for them or not. I hate when the worst team wins. And I think it's clear. I think it's really clear that really the better team did not win this game.
Was the best unit, though, of, like, I don't want to count special teams, but of the 4 units, isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers defense the best of the 4 units? And didn't they play like that? I mean, especially after losing their Holcomb, their starting linebacker.
I mean, I guess technically yes, because T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, and that. But I feel like I don't feel like the Tennessee Titans played up to the level that we've seen them play on defense. So it's kind of like yes, but it's not like by a wide margin, if you get what I'm saying, because there were injuries and stuff. I mean, to me, it's all about the quarterback, man, and like.
Well, so I don't know if
I'm very ecstatic about the quarterback.
I don't know if you can scroll back enough. You got to go up to find Woodrin the Pootie. It's my favorite name. This is ultimately probably the most mature and savvy takeaway from the entire experience, because you can go crazy analyzing a little bit, plays here, play calls there, reads here, reads there. The team is not going to win a Super Bowl. Levis played well. I'm not mad at this. We have $100,000 in cap space next year. Let's develop Levis and build around him for next year. If even Al Michaels,
unless he's talking like kilos or something, maybe he's like in
100 million. That's right, 100 million. Yeah. If even Al Michaels, who I'm not sure prepares for football games anymore as a broadcaster, and I've always loved Al Michaels, but if even Al Michaels is sitting there with Herb Street saying, well, clearly, the Titans have found their guy. Like, there is no discussion. If Will Levis can put his team in a position to win a football game in that situation, game 2, 3 days of practice on the road against one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, with very little help from your defensive front on the other side of the ball, if you can put yourself within the 20 to win a game on the final few snaps, this is not meant to be disrespectful to Ryan Tannehill, but you're done, dude. You are a good veteran backup.
If they go back to Ryan Tannehill for whatever reason, if they go back to Ryan Tannehill, I don't care if he's healthy or not. If they go back to Ryan Tannehill, I'm not watching the game. I may not be able to watch it anyway, technically, but I'm not going to go back and watch the game because it's no point. There's no point in watching a team that does not care about itself.
Yeah, there was. I can't remember what drive it was. Maybe it was the last drive of the first half where Levis is on the side. They have Levis on the camera on the sideline, and he's talking with Hopkins, and I think maybe Vrabel's in there, and then maybe there's like Charles London's in there, maybe too, or something. And like, he's clearly upset with himself. I think it was the deep shot to Hopkins down the left sideline that didn't work out, and then maybe it was the last drive of the first half, or I can't remember what it was. It resulted in a field goal, not a touchdown, obviously. And like, he was frustrated with himself for missing something, and everybody on the sidelines like patting him on the back and get like, you and I haven't really had this conversation yet, and we'll have time to do this. But the energy boost that the team got switching from Mariota to Tannehill, that I think we all kind of saw that happen in real time. The team was energized and confident. This intangible thing that Will Levis has, the poise, the confidence, the leadership, this stuff that he's got, there's a reason the Titans are putting out social media clips of Jeffrey Simmons screaming like, "I told you about this guy. I told you about this guy."
Well, maybe he should scream some defensive play calls or something.
Maybe he should scream at his linebackers or his safeties to make a play.
Well, I will say this: Vrabel put the blame fully on the defense. He did not. He said Vrabel, and this was his presser today while we're doing this. It wasn't about the offense. We've got to play better run defense, affect the quarterback, make tackles.
They did
that
not
is Mike Vrabel's stance.
Did not affect the quarterback. 166 yards rushing, over 5.5 yards a carry. And they gave up the game-winning drive in the fourth quarter. Kenny Pickett stood back there the entire game.
Alex Highsmith generated 11 pressures against the Titans, 9 of which came in matchups against Andre Dillard.
Dude, Andre. Here's the other
Andre.
thing.
Can I say something about Andre Dillard? Because there's a couple different plays I want to talk about. First off, he is a fucking weakling. I have never seen anybody just not want to be physical in pass blocking, right? The what's supposed to be his bread and butter. This guy fucking refuses to make contact with anybody. And then him diving at the feet, maybe he lost his contacts or something, going for an immediate chop block right off the snap. Like, what the this guy, I would have played Jalen Duncan the rest of the way.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going crazy.
Because you know what? Let me tell you something. You know what you got in Andre Dillard. I don't know if you know what you got in Jalen Duncan, and it may not be better. And we said that you couldn't be worse than Dennis Daly. Andre Dillard is worse than Dennis Daly. And maybe Jalen Duncan is worse than Andre Dillard. But give me some unknown, I guess, at this point. Like, Andre Dillard's not it.
So I thought this dynamic, and I do want my first observation about the offensive line outside of the terrible pass blocking. Number one, I thought they could have been called for false starts the entire second half. Am I crazy?
Yeah. Well, this is a new thing.
It looked like
I guess in the NFL is that like there's some kind of leeway that you get, and Jeff Schwartz and Mitchell Schwartz. Is it Jeff Schwartz? Yeah.
Jeff Schwartz, the Oregon offensive line. Yeah.
They both have talked about it, that there is there's some weird 1 second leeway thing, and it's not, to us, it's offside.
Really?
But there's not like it's really offsides. And I don't think I'm describing it correctly, by the way. I don't think I'm describing it like a 1 second leeway type deal. But they've explained it.
Like a beat.
All I can tell you is that it's something about either when the ball is moving, like they're moving quicker than the rest of the offensive line, but the ball is actually moving. Like, I think that's what it is.
Okay.
The ball is moving, but none of the other offensive lines, they're timing it like just perfectly. Almost.
I think they finally called it. They finally called it on Dillard eventually, like at the very end of the game. But I was like, dude, they've been false starting the entire second half. So maybe I need to go back and check up on that. But here's the thing. Like, I thought Radens, they put Radens in at right tackle after MPF hurt himself holding TJ Watt on like the second play of the game. And he was buttoned up, chin strap, standing right next to Vrabel, ready to go. I am convinced that they just thought he couldn't do it against TJ. So Radens, actually, I'll say, look, he didn't win the game against TJ Watt. TJ Watt wins those games most of the time. But I thought Radens, okay, fine, took the spot. I would have liked to have seen MPF at left tackle. Like, just anybody else.
other than Dillard, man. I mean, like
else. And here's the other thing we said on the show today that I think they could have done, because at some points during the game, they had those guys lined up so wide. They had them, Watt and Highsmith were out so wide the entire game. A couple of times at the right before the snap, they'd bring them back in, right, and get them closer to the tackles. But most of the time they were out so wide. Quarterback draw. Design a play to give them just a second to hesitate coming off the edge, because they did a lot of screens. They did a lot of dump offs to try to do that, and it didn't really work. So quarterback draw up the middle.
They're in a bad position, man, with this left tackle situation.
It's bad. And
trade deadlines pass. There's nobody coming in free agency. Like, you have to get, Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt. Like, you have to get one of those guys, and I don't know if they're going to be in a position technically to get them, because guess what? They found a fucking quarterback that can actually still make plays even with a bad offensive line. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing that we haven't really said about Will Levis, is that he's actually elevating the offensive passing game with a bad offensive line. We're talking about 2 back-to-back impressive performances where he goes over 200 something yards, and they have, he's making plays. And so, like, at this point,
Here's an idea.
you just gotta,
Skoronski.
yeah.
Are you ready to move Skoronski? Are you ready to try him or no? Okay.
Just
All right.
keep him at left guard, because
I'm with
then
you.
who you putting in left guard?
I'm Corey Levin.
Maybe Radians, I guess, but then who are you going to put at right tackle? Because I don't know if NPF is long for this team if you couldn't, get in there. I think NPF or Radians at left tackle and right tackle is fine. I think if you want to get crazy and start swapping people around, and instead of just moving one person, you change 3 different people around, I think that's just asking for disaster. I just don't think that's what you do. And you have the ability to get a left tackle in this draft.
Yeah.
I don't see the point in it.
And Hubbard, generally, you come out. I mean, outside of the Traylon Burks type of concussions, which, like the only concussion I ever
had. They got extra time now too, right?
Yes, yes.
They had.
Yeah. Hubbard will be back at right tackle, so maybe Radens is your left tackle, and maybe that's how you do this. But again, real quickly on Burks, by the way, like I know it doesn't look like that crazy of a play, but for a guy who had an extremely severe concussion last season. The only concussion I ever got in a game playing football for like 7 years was the exact same way, which is you go up for a pass as a receiver on the sideline, you turn your body to catch it, and then the guy hits you in the chest, and when you fall back, your neck snaps and you hit the ground. I couldn't walk. So like,
well, they said that he has walked out. Teron Davenport reports Traylon Burks just walked out of the locker room on his own, stopped and talked to one of the coaches, then walked onto the bus. So
good. That's good. That's great.
That's good.
That's good. Yes, Stoney, try some shit. That is exactly the advice I would have is try some shit. I think ultimately, and I don't know how much the secondary, they've been giving up the curl routes and the dig routes and the over the middle stuff the entire game. We don't have to talk much about Gibbons. We don't have to the entire season. We don't have to talk much about Gibbons. I think Christian Fulton does deserve credit, maybe more than the 2 sentences we've given him.
Games.
It's amazing when like I think what happened personally is that the Jeffrey Simmons comments of 3 or 4 games ago, where he said, y'all need to decide if you want to be here or not. And then he started looking at what his contract situation was, and he started realizing, I need to get my shit together. And he's played 3 pretty good games since then. So I want to give him credit for that, as well as, and Edmonds, he made the one really bad play where he got caught inside when he should have been outside on the run play. But otherwise, he runs around a lot. Like he flies around the field. He
almost had a really great pass breakup. I mean, that was just a really good throw by Kenny Pickett. His one good throw was right then and there.
Yeah, McCreary, Sean Murphy Bunting. I think this is a different type of game potentially, because again, they played pretty well on defense with their defensive line hanging them out to dry in the secondary. Sorry, the secondary played pretty well. And other than the big play down the field to Deontay Johnson, and of course the George Pickens play, which, like, frankly, that's the most George Pickens play I've ever seen in my entire life, which is like, you make a perfect play with a perfect throw and you're wide open and you are lazy and you can't get the foot down. Like the Titans,
kind of sad that our offensive identity relies so much, or the offensive success relies so much on fucking Chris Hubbard right now.
Yeah, that's a bad thing. But like, honestly, on the first drive into the red zone, Kenny Pickett should have hit the in breaking route on 3rd down, threw it into the ground. Pickens should have gotten his foot down. So kind of the Titans were lucky to have stopped them to field goals for most of the game. I put it on the defense. Let's finish positively here, though, Zach. Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group. I think there are very few times covering this team, which for me started in 2016, but I've lived in the city since 1998. There are few, and I was a diehard Mariota fan as a college analyst, just not as a pro prospect, but just as a fan of the guy. I loved watching him play. I never knew if he was going to be any good in the NFL. I didn't know. I think Levis has shown you in 2 games, in one very difficult situation and one less difficult situation, that there is no reason not to build your entire franchise around what he is doing right now. And everything else should be decided based on that. Your offensive line decisions, your draft decisions, your free agent decisions, your contract decisions, your play calling decisions, your fucking everything. It should be designed around number 8 is your starting quarterback week 1
Who
of
may be
next
number
season.
7 when Malik Willis is gone next year? We don't know.
Oh, is he going to switch it up?
You never know. That's what people tend to think. So I'm kind of waiting to buy a Will Levis jersey because I'm all in on Will Levis. Like, I was wrong. I don't care. I don't care that people like are. Oh, you remember when you said never Levis? Don't fucking care. Doesn't matter. It's called adjusting your thinking when you're presented new information, and I'm all in. I was wrong. I don't have an ego where I can't admit that.
This is what you pay me for. A new shit has come to light, man. New shit has come to light. And I think the whole point of life is to change your opinion when new information comes to like that's the whole point of life. So ultimately they had a chance in the red zone to win the game. The drive at the end of the first half, frankly, with the 2 throws to Kyle Phillips were just absurd.
Oof.
The throw to Nick Westbrook-Akine was absurd. The throw on the screen pass to Derrick Henry was absurd. The throw to Treylon Burks.
I don't know why they stopped letting him eat.
I get it, but the throw to Treylon Burks on first down with the terrible towels going crazy, the loudest that stadium had been the entire game, backed up inside your 10. They go play action on first down and let him go down the field, and he did it. I don't know, man. I think it's okay to be pissed off about the loss and concerned about some of the other positions and to be very excited about the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
That's just kind of where I'm at. That's just like I'm mad at the inept football that was played against the Steelers in a winnable game. But I'm also really happy about the future prospects of Will Levis, and it seems very clear that you got a guy to build around, and that is Rand Carthon's job. Like, that is your job from here on in. When you're scouting, because they're probably getting in pretty close. I think they scout 24/7, 7 days, whatever. But when you're building, you're in the midst of probably constructing your big board, right? So when you are making priority, sending your best scouts to priority games and doing all this kind of stuff and building your big board, it should be with Will Levis in mind. What does Will Levis need? Does he need a speedy deep threat guy like an Xavier Worthy that could possibly in the 2nd or 3rd round? Does he need a big-bodied wide receiver? Should the priority be left tackle? Yes, it should be. But, when you're doing your free agency boards, this is something you're going to be looking at. Should we spend all of our money on defense and then build our offense and let them all come up together? All I know is that right now, yes, they lost, but my God, I am just... He makes throws that just are like, what the fuck? Like, even really that almost interception to Chig in the end zone at the very end of the game before the actual interception.
He was like,
I thought he made it through. And really, if Chig didn't actually dive behind the defender and just kind of like stayed there, he could have got it.
Well, that's one of those where he's like, I'm going to throw this football through a brick wall and I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to see what happens.
And I'm fine with that.
Look, he's a rookie quarterback in his 2nd start on the road against Pittsburgh. I don't know how many times I need to say, like, I'm reminding myself, but like through that prism, everything I saw, despite a couple of mistakes or nitpick here, nitpick there, there was one, for example, in the first half where he should have put it in the dirt on a screen and instead he threw it to Spears and they lost 7 yards when they were in field goal range. Yeah. Like, that's okay. All right. He's a rookie quarterback. He's not going to do everything perfectly. Like, it's fine. So I think they get some playmakers around him, but most importantly, they get the offensive line figured out. I actually do think they have the play, whatever you think of tonight's game, I think they do have the play caller to fit his system, his arm, and his talent for right now.
I do. I agree with that. Like, ultimately, I'm not saying fire Tim Kelly. I'm not saying, Tim Kelly has sucked all year long, because neither of those things are true.
Right.
And Tim Kelly has been dialing up deep shots all year long, and now they got the quarterback that can actually complete the deep shots and complete other things that neither of these other quarterbacks could have done. And this seems like to me, it comes down to the offensive line blocking. And in the previous games, it came down to, Ryan Tannehill missing wide open guys, people dropping passes. You're still having drop passes in this game. But I'll say this. Whenever you target Kyle Phillips, good things happen. We know that whenever you target DeAndre Hopkins, good things happen. Josh Wiley, I guess they decided to ease him in today into the game plan, which I think is a little odd. I think that's a mistake by them.
You better include my guy.
And I'm going to love some Tajay Spears and stuff.
No.
Oh, NWI. Yes, I'm all in on. I like NWI.
Because that throw with a guy hanging on his leg, NWI breaks off his route and goes up the field, and Levis just is like, here you go, 35 yards down the field for a first down, or 25 yards or whatever. But like, NWI is my guy, so make sure you throw the ball to NWI.
Well, and I'll tell you this right here. Will Levis apparently just sat at a chair in his locker room, just like, looking into space, kind of like the competitive psycho thing, I guess. Or he's just fucking weird. I don't know. I mean, he could just be weird. But either way, I think that Levis is got everything you want. We've talked about it since he got drafted, that he has everything you want. He's just got to put it all together. And we've seen him put it together more often than not. And I would say way more often than not these last two games. And that's important. I think that I just find some of the things that were done today, not by Will Levis, but pretty much the offensive line, the play calling, the defense, where I'm just like left scratching my head thinking, what did they do these last few days? Like, what were they thinking? The Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line is worse than the Atlanta Falcons offensive line. So what in the world happened? Where was that fire?
I don't know.
From this defense, why could they not toss these guys around?
They honestly, they looked. This is maybe part of the answer, actually, and I hadn't thought about it until just now. They look tired. They look tired. They look tired.
That's what it was.
Short week. They look tired, and we can argue about this or that. I think my personal blame falls on the defensive line, giving Kenny Pickett all day to throw the entire time and giving up 170 yards rushing, and not getting stops in the fourth quarter like that. But like it's a team game. You win and lose as a team, and I do think the Levis brief moments of lapses with his internal clock, says Stoney there in the comments. I think sure there's times in that 2-minute, those 2-minute drives or whatever at the end of the game where maybe you want him to throw the ball a little quicker. But again, these are minute things that you are going to train out of a guy when he's had more than 2 starts in his career. Like I just like.
What do you think about the Spears thing? Because Spears kind of backpedaled and whatever, but also I think it was a bad throw. I don't think it was. I think it was like on both Will Levis and Ty Spears. Almost touchdown.
Oh. So, okay. If you go back, so I like the view of the 22 a lot better when they showed that because it made sense to me after seeing it that way. I think because Spears is open. Spears breaks past the defender and he's open. I think Levis actually throws it properly. I think a natural receiver, you don't want to turn all the way around to like lose the football and then go over your other shoulder to look for it, but you can't go backwards. You can't go backwards. So I don't think it's one of those. It's just unfortunate. I don't think Levis needs to take a whole lot off of that throw. I think he probably placed it fairly well, maybe a little underthrown or a little overthrown, but like not by much. I think Spears has to keep running. Like you got to run through the football. And so I think that's the one that should have been caught, I think, by Spears. And when you turn too early and start backpedaling, that's when you get caught up and you don't maintain your momentum enough because he was open. Good play call, good read, good throw. Mostly, Spears is running back. So
it seems like there's one every game where there is a good design play that is poorly executed by at least someone that would have ended up with a touchdown.
And sometimes that's football, man. Sometimes that's football. And it's the difference in the NFL when they get paid millions of dollars. That's sometimes the difference in 4 and 3 and 5. So
you got to keep D-Hop no matter what in the offseason, by the way. You have to find a way to keep D-Hop and then not have to go in and need like 3 wide receivers.
Yeah. And so you can draft offensive linemen. A lot of good winnable games down the stretch. I know Jacksonville's record is 6-2, but they may not be as good as that. So it's still very winnable to catch them. You win a couple of games in a row here. All of a sudden you go to, 5-5 and boom, you You got 7 games to finish the season with a chance to have a winning record. And I think Will Levis has proven he's capable of giving your team a chance to win, which ultimately is like the last thing when you're evaluating him. Ultimately, you're like, okay, I want to see manage the game, manage the clock, quick release, read a defense, all the things, productive, efficient throwing. At the end of the game, win the game. That's the last thing you ask him to do. And I think, he's given him a chance in 2 games. He's won it in one, and he was in the end zone on the last play of the game in the other one. So I think Titans fans should be very excited about the quarterback that they have and enjoy the rest of the ride. Let's see what he can do. I think that's where we're at. So, okay, we'll be back on Monday. If you want SEC game previews, check out our previous episode of A Football Show. So we got 3 episodes this week, so go check that out. We talked a little SEC football in there as well, so go get to that. We've also got videos on the 440 Sports YouTube page of all the 3 big SEC football games, so check that out as well. Of course, football and other F words, you got stackingtheinbox.com. I'm sure you got some stuff coming for the wonderful folks coming up over the weekend and during the mini buy, so make sure you check all that out. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you guys for showing up tonight in the comments on a late night after a Thursday night game. Love having you guys here. It's the reason we do it, so we appreciate it. For Zach and me, Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group up there, we do appreciate it. You want this fancy bottle of Russell's Reserve that Zach picked out with his own mouth? It's delicious. This is my first time tasting it, by the way. Delicious. So go get it. I got you. See this bottle back here? Right here, Zach?
Yep.
See that one right there? That one's yours.
I've been eyeing it.
That one's yours right there. It's for you. So whenever I see you next, you got the bottle of whiskey for you. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you to Sinkers. Thank you to Kingston Group. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend.